That was at least 60 seconds ago.
There's new stuff in there. I'm glad you didn't send it like an hour ago.
Well, that's why I said a while ago. You both good? Joe, you're good? Cool. Contention won his expertise. Trump's trying to strip civil servants of collective bargaining rights through a bevy of executive actions, especially scheduling FIST. In 25, turning on all parties protection law proceeding under the civil service, entire workers may quit at will, if I say so, limited discretion, caught by the right to bargain like that, LRA. A fair discretion with time, the executive mobilized for protecting your position on the lawsuit. Bargain both unions and individuals allowed to control conduct and enforcement, ensuring rights to the first time, total offended power could you control unions to bring out to heal by increasing efficiency, officials interrogating except social media. Actually, fair, all make fairly well, if they'll no matter how unlawful. Versions of them could be tolerable, but Trump's purposely violate bargaining rights to force courts to articulate a maximal interpretation of unitary executive theory that's what most concerns. Career was holdouts, Roger Stein, 25, blood, standard, schedule, the retail, concern, how to go over first one thing, what happens on the violent little CBS, the rules and limitations of constitution that doesn't matter by that the purpose by the challenge of Supreme Court, lower courts, are very the consequences of the court. Those concerns will hollow state expertise, which is what contains impacts across changes in things like regulatory direction and great strategy. This aggregation of opaque existential risk outweighs more specific scenarios, Shulman. Intuitively, 30% of security sales over management against more real catastrophic risk, 7% of nuclear types, most make management protection, make it possible to perform. And extreme risk over advisory report, risk, common loss, intelligence, training, damage, across person events, in writing, extreme capabilities, make strong mental and educated because civil authorities serve actively across person, stable, taking security, make response, and we're food safety, markets, qualification, not bargaining, vice president, dare not be reprisal, expertise, ensures Trump's foreign policy, prevents rather than escalates nuclear war with Russia, China, and other powers, Cambridge, and 25 Russian Chinese leader, Turkish interaction, transactions, social factors, methods, disaster, further Russian rules, abortion, coalition, and all time leaders of social media, desperation, media states, potential like any Ukraine, Taiwan, and the Middle East, because potential nuclear wars, greatest carbon, community coverage, and neighbors, article 5, 7, by the use of armor, politics, political vulture, the fight, psychological center, as countries, a strong personal system, and I should have just been diplomacy against part of hostility between China, India, Russia, Turkey, relation with Beijing, Malcolm, and lead breakthrough, but Spanish, Ukraine, governments, Japan, or the Pacific contended with Iran and Syria, and though tensions remain, though more open negotiation, received prepare, practice the definition of constitution, campaign, the compartmentalizing nuclear, non-political powers, control pandemic, counter-terror, arctic space, spreading nuclear exchange, requires perpetuating protections and coercion, policies that the place that environmental will be the advocacy of state crafts, use conflict, furniture based of co-op. It's not about revisionism nor polarity. Conflicts likely to emerge from interactions with middle powers whose perceptions of hegemonic competition generate resistance to cooperation space, and whether middle powers actively enable the country to contribute balancing diplomacy will likely exacerbate the military precondition thought this is drama and escalation spillover of conflict to the brief probability war though through middle powers conflict between great powers is not wrong but complete opportunity protection and basic control. Great powers in a major country wars proposals challenges managing race and war resistance being recruited countries being conversation protection and competition coercion. Thus the plan of the United States federal government should restore collective bargaining for federal civil servants weakened by executive actions. Contention to his non-compliance in the face of Trump's flip his own strategy. Courts are both checking him in some areas and affirming extreme powers in others. Goldman and 20 of the cool extreme executive power things with illegal spending fees, funds, something that will be refused to take on more test cases, pushing boundary tests, to overrule precedent, remove powers to jeopardize spending power. Some of the courts limit something will bless earnings, but a maximal interpretation of unitary executive theory to civil servants' labor rights determines the institutional ability to resist and recover from Trump's appointees. Point ahead in 25. How long do we recover from Trump? How much court races do we take max for the whole civil service? Unconstitutional becomes very hard because no one can make court commitments of parents cover the term firmly. Civil code is more whether primary suggest unprecedented rules and movements we've been very hard to see the side of find now. It will change any how much executive of the except the expertise not uploaded. I never repeat yes, searching on the reason we will get a very appeal of Trump. Other penalties stop us control to pound funds or special HCs because no one can enforce other checks and implementations controlled by loyalists. And the public remains from the time to 25 loyalists pushers for the first time this time no other constitutional vote change the judicial rule actual legal Trump. Here's on except the executive control public assembly Trump the vice second time this is happening. And of course, notwithstanding those in the average from drug committed peaceful events not held accountable. There's only two checks in the rate moderate and then corrupts the IGA to relate relation even a weak and perfect great independent judgment. Trump's been five members of the last time in civil society, but its capacity to administer resources may be formidable. But hold to right out the storm. Trump's already broadly non-compliant and courts legalize it without sustained public outcry. In 25. Already found court says that a case to use language is covered legalistic non-compliance consumer pervasive defines only non-compliant provoke public opposition political pushback sends a different message judges legalize for courts to reveal outright non-compliant states compliant court give room continue public focus make it easy for courts to push this force only when not subject to public scrutiny if the courts the public start to recognize those in power. Only federal unions have the legal resources and public credibility to bring sufficient public pressure to bear blockage 25 the organized power for workers made obstacle stronger than they are for Trump nobody else's position to halt this time by making compelling public history to government fights that's given to public maggots remedy that they need materialize always between the popular Trump's measuring against taking self-preservation only model resistance when happening attacks encouraging your programs high profile actions that can defeat Trump and unchecked Trump is unique and destructive, catalyzing many public crisis feedback to extinction, including nuclear wars. Howard Dixon in 21 links up close to the when Trump second terms warning constraints global wars to extreme and certain U.S. respond to crisis results of power war forward super public crisis altered existing stress generate triggers and catalyze concerns loss of carbon permission of periods provided replaceable with schedule. Have a few combined with Congress and satellite shutters be extreme in favor of avoid route installing low list influence rule influence release these other checks and finish process response crack on the military suppression exception expression shorting along another and more unpredictability to make a considered schedule. To decision escalating crisis and stumbling into new war transaction diplomacy, progressive losers, coordination of America, provided crisis management of these building weakened TNC, young use of women, unlikely running concerns, quality, but under true pressure, Trump's product, systemic trust, and poly crisis continue regardless still, has accelerated many well added more stress, uniquely charming triggers of global systemic crisis, failure to contain non-compliance, and foreign investment stability, Morrison, in 25 defense is not one time presenting clouds order repeatedly, publicly expanded official no violation, reach court, no question that crisis, economies, take over premiums, abilities, or even independent judicial guarantee, clear, liable, conflict of property, attract foreign investment, directly, destabilizing judiciary, casinos, consequences of foreign investment, police ability, take generations to establish FBI info, stimulate global interdependence, that filters conflict escalation, Bruce Act 15, foreign investment, most effective, create peace, global conflict, the time, driving interdependence, key global capital, creates peace, communicate with other, trying to hear iterations, by attention, globalizing, work, trade, co-op, other, through transaction, supply chain, maximizing these, decreasing conflict power, of our business, on the whole, political process, lobbying for conflict reduction, secret purpose, wealthy, your states, industry, protection, the periphery, be included, remaining, conflict, secret, most capital, fluid, ideological policy, war, conflict, trying to accelerate developed economies, should strategically entwine, loss of FDI, driven connectedness, goes nuclear, car, right, independencies may work, constantly, FI, underbrain integration, relevant, nuclear use, elusive threats emerge from the same dynamics, increasing lethal, technically, biopathogens, nuke, cyber war, ABC terror, conflated with hotspots, new crisis management, and person, and experience, rapidly escalate by accident, history, religion, over borders, and this ideology is used, research and potential for escalation, sense of shortage of tools for diplomacy, the nuke option, 100% trade defense doesn't apply, apologetic, and 11, Mulder's conclusion, independence, reduce conflict examination, yield reasons, FDI, reduce conflict, compared to trade, FDI, long-term nature, to differentiate trade, change regulating easily, before it breaks out, trade goods, delayed, loss, minimized, number FDI once made cannot withdraw arbitrarily lost from conflict, continue with cost, not recovery, multinational sports, government, cooperative results, indicating countries that have greater FDI choose, less conflict, independently, broadly, asymmetric and independence, risk, nuclear grade power, wars, Garsky, 24, innocent countries, de-risk rising barriers and repatriating so more together in history, economic integration, that travel over between new cars, customer deterrence, complexity, trade numbers, better explaining, empirical road, theory, argue, capitalist interaction, exists, potential, other answer, but there's commercial peace, consensus, convincing, that asymmetric ties, experience your conflict, asymmetric become entangled more cross-data sets in line with network studies, FDI balances out trade asymmetries, now key because Trump's injecting uncertainty, however, 25 independence increasing comes more or less like exaggeration, marketing, leading war, exposed, more quickly, military comes replaced by small military, independent, new entity, extra pressure without military analysis, demonstrated, asymmetry, limits, effects, and costly signal, SLR focused on debate debates for 72-22 FDI flows, proxies for independence, FDI uncertainty, exacerbated by Trump's suggested on the shift in global interdependencies. Now, the plan solves, computer. Okay. Collective bargaining is both necessary and sufficient to solve. First, enforcement workers only trust unions and their institutions. That's why they chose other alternatives. Handler 24, improving custody education case studies, demonstrate well subject to procedures under statutes, discipline, or negotiated procedures, different substantial opportunities under labor and safety. It's the only court of MSU. FLRA is empirically the most effective. Even under Trump, Handler 24 did confirm labor offer prevails under House of President FLRA. Majority shows stability, though Trump significantly given over to hostility. Observers pursuing the FLRA majority. Well, point was more hostile. There was no medication, anti-device. Second, resistance, win rates, unit resources, publicity, lobbying, insanity to challenge our blood and most resist polarization and generate confidence and whistleblower Handler. In 24, Trump's still leveraging rights to most policies and other structures to come under attack. Efforts will multiply. CB changes enforcement process, how all decision or shape tools. President uses discipline, budget, standard scholarship, presume operating top level, more often orchestration capacity, agencies could condition reassigning material policy, cutting funding and pay unions routinely leverage rights to prevent numerous examples during Trump primary means resistance, labor litigation, condition ability to lead, criticize, or speak out, protecting even if not used as used. Often never protect our management right, users the bedrock resistance, battle direction, child safety, and power resources and expertise, allowing defense to achieve higher win rates. It's reverse causal, Jordan 25 specifically. The CBA will offer expertise, negotiating policy, expand benefits, and help protection and pushback against cross compromise, standards and facts, whistleblower protection, refusal, lawful orders, and network result worse outcomes. Third, substance policy autonomy is the only way to access to benefits of expert capacity, better 25, plus relationship capacity, structural independence, not require complete total control of the president, use stronger discretion, occurs expertise, and establishes course can protect, use even intention by administration, president, obligation, faith, and management, prohibition, unless you can structure president, undermining tie the hands, successors, basic district course police, Robert Six making options to restrain self dealing, subordinates, cannot choose bind successors, suggest president cannot imagine ways to limit the power of the future president, clear area, a unitary executive prohibit tie control, prevent undermining capacity, press accountability, control capacity, or consequence, whether bigger budget, environmental, recruiting, which enemies, critical, civil service, so much money, more policy, course, refuse to intervene in termination, setting status, or exclusive procedure for employees, and unions, agencies, with trends, and force, make it difficult to rebuild for the first advantage, karate, 25 seconds, or analysis, more effective defense, establishment, resistance, achievement, being clear, advising policies, discipline, capacity, form, united from agencies, able to exercise discretion, retain bureaucratic tools, resist, and the second, tyranny, 25, Trump's will was supported by admin, expertise, autonomy, use discretion, elimination, investigation, total systemic investigation, challenging Alio, in public trust, could not advance ideas, and institute, critical, confirmed agency, reframe direction, decision making, concerning FOCO, it's only CBR solved that, handle 24, carcass, courts, along, came with the size, expertise, monitor, resist, bureaucrats, practical, legal, motives, sustained by limiting asymmetry, and info discretion, cut it at discretion, it's not about reversing firing, shoemaking, 25, career steps, we appear to be the past majority who's bargaining Trump, self-discoverable, 200,000 left, still 2.2 million, some agencies, bigger hits, HSS, EPA, but the percentage critic hasn't budged. Mark Shoemaker hasn't budged.
Hasn't budged. I got you.
Okay, you're good?
Yep.
Okay. The plan. What what CBs does the plan restore?
The ones that are most relevant for solvency are policy autonomy and whistleblower protections.
And just cause protection.
And just cause protections.
Okay. Does it restore the CBA or does it strengthen those three things?
The plan least necessary means would probably be returning to Biden era CBAs.
Okay.
So whatever those included.
Okay. And then do you all think that whistleblower protections are CBRs, or do you think the CBAs that encapsulated the whistleblowers were part of collective bargaining?
I mean, obviously, I guess it'll depend on like what people define CBR to mean, but no, I don't think like the text of the CSRA or the FSLMRS like says that whistleblowing is a collective bargaining.
So the way that you get to whistleblowers is by going back to the collective bargaining agreements.
Well, that's the way that all collective bargaining rights get back to anything.
Sure,
It's
like
the
there are
collective
different types
bargaining
of-
agreement.
Okay, sure. And those are the three things. What card do you think is best at the 1AC that says that collective bargaining, the process is necessary for the case?
All of our evidence, like all of the cards in the
like,
Okay, I got it. The handler card tags second resistance.
Okay, and the reason you think bargaining is necessary is, my understanding from this card is just like lobbying and whistleblowing?
No. Well, so the first handler card, the one tagged first enforcement,
Yeah.
tells a little bit of the story. That one in particular is like a case study of FLRA adjudications, and that process is what workers have faith in. But the second handler card, the resistance one, indicates that unions have sort of like a bundle of things that make workers sure that they can resist the president. It's not only lobbying, that's one of them, but it's also they empirically have the higher win rates.
Okay.
They also have resources, so like unions have their own lawyers, so you don't have to like go out and find your own lawyer, and those lawyers have money.
That makes
Unions.
sense. The first advantage, the bargaining rights for the Department of Defense and like those still exist. I guess like what national security agencies do you think are necessary to solve for the international risks of this war?
Probably the Department of State, but the DoD also doesn't have.
Well, that's what I mean. So like, I guess if it doesn't resolve like issues within
Our internal link is about diplomacy by
just
agents in the
diplomacy,
DOS.
why does that stop the Department of War from just like being belligerent and causing a conflict with Russia?
Because, well, what do you mean, like causing a conflict with Russia?
Like, you said that American belligerency under Trump would cause escalation. There's an entire Department of War.
I don't think that's not what we said. I think our evidence suggests that Trump can be a rational foreign policy actor if he is guided by the correct people. Our argument is that if there are the correct experts
What is the internal link between getting Trump to do something and unions? There's obviously big stuff, their political agency heads, etc.
Well,
How do you
the
think Trump-
policy autonomy protections allow those workers who are in the union to avoid doing an escalatory action Trump wants them to do. So it legally allows them to disobey his orders.
It's 8 expertise and then non-compliance.
Here, you want to put this in? Here, son. Hold on. Let's see a minute.
Okay, everyone's got it. First off is ASPAC law and breaches investigation is voting issue. You know, all politics, ground mechanisms, government liberty, net fairness, next off is Buddhism. We know this to be true. Universal improvements being suffering and all turning the case according to medical life, thus accepted. Radical acceptance as quo is more virtuous choice than the aim of participating in what is understand control. People try 19 to be separate from each other to be the big person, let the leaders ways medical acceptance, get out control. Results only attention to lose. Water, but we don't know, edgy perfection, was everything, future opportunity, and all that. Safe their alternatives in front, because so much of us, not too often bring them, just in the GPS, and to see the writers, to distract, to be effective. Next off is the midterm TV, 19 federal government should find that the Constitution prohibits altering. That's what institution with the state on November 16, 2025 until 2030 and adopt a authority and strictly writing policy with capital punishment for leaks of fully certified the 2026 midterm election not declare suspend elections to avoid the national government to change election procedure 2030 and not voting. Remember the voting rights act stems with now to inserted polling market 1116 and the plan is perceived as all branch unions across the economy. Smith 25 to the federal workers is about what's really more than right and walks and paying the single admin but indicator for different region contradicting to you. Remember corporation to the world and the federal workers who as service the rest of the workers who can see that they're on strike. that enables the GOP to critically work, focus economic populism, beating down to the punch and flipping key districts. Now, by 25, predetermined policies of access to job work, influence corporations, being all the people with the working class, Americans, being for work, focus economic populism, clear head of the midterm, critically works, critically pay program, economically progressive voters could easily take the elections. Dem win blocks the golden dome. Cox 25. Pentagon is business is capable of producing a GDP technological problem, but not be able to decided in the 22nd terms of the House of Representatives. I think we're going to be putting extra money for that name. Golden Dome creates multiple series for extinction, including space wars and force strike instability. Roman 10-3. Genie automatic companies that are in Russia and Russia have started today said a doubling our system is open to the north of the city. Germany is going to be generated by the intercept satellites and other by the companies that can turn production into towards the episode of the resources increasing attention actively resources are produced to move such a try as a facility conventional and resources as a dangerous and normalizing weaponization of space and functionality of programs for DGD's challenge to its deterrent. Next up is automation capital. The United States federal government should substantially replace federal civil servants with automated assistance program to operate within parameters established by authorizing systems of the agencies that solves and competing with scalable replacements are key. Well, 19 even stronger automation or the system of common device system of policies also for represent to become human to be not performed without the use of program conflict with the very limited significance of device data. Human to develop efficiency and equitable and AI continue to improve their accomplishments with working with many times human actors working more effectively created by AI and Netherlands and level bureaucracy with JCT layer just like rule that human interference instead of brands and more places orchestras or level bureaucracy clearly is admin work by humans living very little work for the bureaucrat polycrisis requires AI admin state. Mass mentor 25 teacher opportunity to address polycrisis reactive bring cyber really disrupt and understood the urgency of the system response to the population simple failures cascading abilities and rules and applications which multiple volatility required for restrictive analytical digital transformation of people governments face challenges with limited resources. Next up is the bargaining pick. The United States federal government should substantially increase non-collective bargaining protection for federal workers when the president was suggesting act to establish former presidents who have been impeached in the COVID reverse chronological order. In the next line of session upon removal of the president and vice president, citing health concerns, have the president and vice president, the United States step down, perpetually funded staff, regulatory agencies provide competitive wages and benefits for civil servants in comparison to private sector employees. Collective bargaining rights are civil service protection. The counterpart competes and institutes a suite of employment reforms that avoids empowering union obstruction and ossifies the executive, which checks existential threats. Why is 25? Government functionary control union interaction, you just force creates even of employees for performance, changes, economic adaptation to enter, change cyber capabilities, and economic and overrepresented critical abilities, actors with the federal protected from discriminating retaliation for whistleblower. Their internal compensation to be the necessary protection of safeguards and principles, anti-discrimination laws, and whistleblowers give the workers all. The changes in power to take a decision on public work to a union and power to be suspended with obstruct policy, effective essential work to combine protection of floods. Public unions trying the case, they're structurally inefficient. Lack of market means bargaining can't equilibrate, and rent seeking produces debt weight loss and holdouts. FT25 will not increase inefficiency because a dreadful abysmal wages had to be called making reduce with a very inefficient job to make it perfect to be job segregation because of performance you get. It cannot just with efficiency of these multiple sets of huge numbers of people to demand the non-working and social money to permit a burden union to shareholders. Trying to see the to public and unions are compensation to you and good well God news that because the person in the market and things become very, very difficult long and contentious. Next up is topicality subsets. CBR concludes subsets of liberation of corporation not to Congress attended for revenue to workers, these all workers, I look when workers means all include persons. Substantially with how much qualifications are having in 28 material qualification. Violation of the is a subset voting there to petition opens the floodgates to an single sector or even single company asking the negative for unusual and underwrites coordinate ground making the plan distinct from the status quo. Next up is city regulation D. Trump's executive American energy dominates for good growth. 25 percent of a new oil and gas permitted closures, export commercial, exporting nominating authority and energy. Strong labor production to enable federal workers to send long-term, particularly on environmental degradation. Burner 23 with agencies to the federal principally insulated civil service accurately including efficient policy they just like that. And we're up to 3 to 1 in the significant Republican agenda, even if those people going to for review to directions if they labor and to be written in appointees. Collective bargaining is the mechanism behind worker obstruction. The by 25 agencies no longer needing to be with unions alone. We need to from the control of the unions to perform to provide opportunity for elected leaders to manage the government. Energy dominance stops existential war. Take 25 information to certify about action funded that everyone's going to be proxy which Russia can be for Ukraine and Russia countries to put in Canada how much they saw peace with Israel. Continue to work by the American LNG Putin industry ran out of cash. Next up is a capitalism key labor law is a tool of capitalist discipline, legal protection, subsume class struggle to the framework of capital accumulation, including class consciousness. President Tweeter, liberal capitalism improved impossible in facilitating capital is of many of independent entities with private capital rights and the workers identify right to practice the right to democracy, protecting the laws of organization, or make the history formed of self-determined organization, agreed for division. Capitalism is unstable extinction. George 23 quoted over threats of the Union Bank from different property resources, increasing bargaining and extra station with at least construction technology reaching U.S. and to create an evolution to every state system to avoid escalation in conflict, fatal research activities in the most powerful setting worlds, needed to restrict resources of us with military communities using sex military produces new biochemical and temporal essential feedback capitalists. All is economic commitment to a planned economy is mutually exclusive. Neither 22 working capital not exists as a business company maximum structure the market laws capital and keeping in working together, prevent social administration that can save the control of labor, representation of social project population and reinvestment further this episode relational work and logic maximize value. Go to the expertise advantage, the advocacy fails. The law text before advocacy is deficient, emphasis on prevent reliability, maximum disadvantage, long and reliability to provide institution ability to center to challenge solitary reason unlikely to correct a mistake. It'll make you feel that preventing discrimination or to the further purpose expertise space higher office and lower experts for promotion and about social probation exerted because agencies open up the extra ability to continue to competition efforts but alternative solutions with decentralized experimentation and advocacy monopolistic feature or ability feedback for learning to create another profit more decisions for several less to the income monopolistic nature and possible necessity policy like and factor control and ability of their liability of expert importance. Of diversity experts moving to ready for the couple of steps to the original amendment ethics of liberty for drug with it is sending discipline extra interest energy code like even move from the ideology based on this system certified user people word image for life of experts agency to valorize members of the whatever thing awakes up in efficient perspective advocacy crowd of the experts no solvency Trump will listen should be to community party when it's over to you whatever else you do economics of trees and the economy data going for their term for this they're experts in our really expertise 25 expert of university and government and lobbying economy device no longer offers them and ability to whether we work at the teacher universities based on mediocre and accepted from American programs are rigorous economies but not run a business Trump's on attacking the foreign service going to 25 growth is running good point with the United States agenda and native appointed by posing for us and visa forward national lenders and diplomacy returning over and overseas call causing significant delay and report terminality to real and offices and report job market job losses we got a diplomacy more second more diplomacy and official organization focused on organizations not sales for must be reviewed and consultation team organization for lower women's and working for months no Trump foreign policy impact. And 25 not even who is official century automatic religious stories about last years in America, Chinese arrests back in World War II, diversity in Trump's unpredictable police movements from China and Russia, China technical to Trump too, we would not know who does not respect his Trump to engage in radically change his policies. Small state leadership feels what's tricky. Participation for organizations and secret with those measuring Trump organizations that can extend limitation and small no recording the policies to balance and different interests like life and contention because the group alliance by small group governance inclusion for to the rules of effectively would have been designed little attention to countries other than the group to the person rules and ideal that it is fixed in countries just have the coalition with links to Turkey to by and precisely more to lawyers. Consequently, Christian comparing civil agreements limitation when they defend rules where other countries either consulted nor had their interest been considered go the long compliance advantage only ambitious deregulation FDI and grant to be fair. Trump reduced compliance costs opening individuals deregulatory inclination or more favor reducing regulatory compliance of policy under government Trump deregulation downsizing federal agencies with to go some way. Trump can't talk about it's America. Not only 25 years more potential for legislation to give me some damage without custody of blood and murdering still decades education. Senators when I go to another person that has police or range of regular to be no over our service over what for foundation against teachers and legal authority. To tell us how much we do as we sit up with the influence of the media troll foundations and just our not even realize even with loyals. No public correspondence on YouTube not related to report seen to use the thing we live in your prohibition because of we live in worship. News realize that negative to every attention that our prices are related after we can advertise and receiving connection but they don't exist. Important reason to be scared for economics and for the mind and pushing against shocks. Supply to be backlash as policies are to market and public rights we get policy solution we don't see public resistance and emerging policy solutions for policy and business to address multiple crises.
You good?
Yeah.
Status?
The status quo is a logical law with new undisclosed advantages.
Can you kick planks?
June? Yeah.
And can you combine counterclaims?
We can go for like a DA with uniqueness counter plan or yeah, I guess.
Okay.
I'm really sure.
Sure. The midterms DA uniqueness counterplan. The first plank, what does it do about states who have already altered their voting districts?
They would return them to the previous voting districts because those alterations would have been unconstitutional.
Okay. And capital punishment for leaks, yeah.
If you go for the cascade, would you go for the alt? Like, do you have to go for the alt?
It probably wouldn't make a ton of sense if we didn't go for the alt.
We'll have a framework card that's like possibilities from we could go for it without the alt.
Okay. The AI admin counterplan. What Ev says that AI can replace the federal civil service?
The Bullock evidence actually says AI is superior to the federal civil service because it makes better and less biased decisions.
Okay, so say let's take the scenario where Trump is actively disagreeing with Tulsi Gabbard on the intel that we're sharing, and AI is just announcing to Trump hey, that's not true. What does the AI do to check Trump?
This evidence indicates that AI would make the correct determination that is superior to both Tulsi Gabbard and Trump's estimation. If your argument is just he won't listen, then that also links to the federal civil service because he wouldn't listen to them either.
Okay.
But our argument is that insofar as there is an ability to check Trump with expertise, AI is far superior.
The employment CDR pick, what non-collective bargaining protections does the counterplan implement?
Most likely whistleblowers would probably create better working conditions.
Only whistleblowers.
Like employment civil service protections. So like our evidence
Well,
says
yeah.
that there's a bunch of civil service protections that Trump has ignored that are distinct from collective bargaining rights. So things like the inability to arbitrarily fire workers, they can't reclassify them with Schedule F, they can't fire them for whistleblowing, that kind of stuff.
Okay. Does the
Merit-based
counter-
hiring,
Yeah, merit-based hiring or
cause
promotional.
protections,
Does the counterplan prevent like a bargaining
What's
agreement?
that benefit, just internal?
internal and linearly, all of it links less to the dereg DA because all of our links would just be about the bargaining process, stonewalling, regulation.
Okay. I want to talk about the link to the midterms DA. The Smith evidence is like Biden got on the picket line, Reagan talked about corporations. What link do you think you've read?
I mean, you've taken random contextual example lines, but our evidence is broadly making the claim that the Democrats' ability to win depends on their ability to characterize themselves as the working class party and the Republican Party as not that. But the plan would give Trump an opportunity to re-characterize himself.
Yeah, but yeah, okay, my computer's not frozen. Done. Hold on, I'm sorry. The term on non-compliance is you said deregulation good on non-compliance and deregulation good on the dissent, deregulation bad on non-compliance. Which is it?
Wait, okay.
The turn on non-compliance, the FDI thing, is an explicit double turn. Are you gonna pick one now, or do you want me to pick?
Where?
The dereg dissent?
Where do you think we said dereg good? Or where do you think we said the opposite of the FDI good?
The dissent energy dominance?
No, we said dereg good in both cases. Both dereg is good for
Yeah. fossil
FDI
fuels
and
FDI.
dereg is good for fossil fuels.
Great. Sort of.
Wait, I actually don't think that's better.
I know, there's no double.
Okay. 753. Saving and sending. Order. Case 1B. Then expect. Then T. And the AI power plan. The CBR pick. The cat pick. The Buddhism cake. Energy dissent. Trump appeared to listen to experts is why the first removal of restraining border internal links about autonomy shaping the direction of policy implementation. The personal relationship with diplomats which are insulated, that's better and Cambridge expert. Hansen is relevant, it just complains that schooling is worse now, that's not a fault of the bureaucracy plus. He's from the Center for American Greatness Misinformation, FAFDC, and 23 published missing wars and everything that emissions are because his bias use more social misinformation. Kronig is in Trump's pocket, don't trust his phrases, but the plan doesn't stop restructuring, scripting CBRs just undermines its upside, which ensures policy fail and Federer Homer and Cambridge. Trump, the answer evidence is wrong. Trump's unpredictability causes wars, not prevents transactional diplomacy causes insurance breaks down, which bullets average that's commission no prediction, and taking Joe's F-35 to the Navy disproves the true words. Yes, we know how is there evidence is about small states, but doesn't assume that they could be aligned with the United States Coast Plan, non-compliance. No turn, our scenarios were about guardrails and moderate policy enforcement and implementation, not policies themselves. Broad regulatory direction is not change better. In 25 hours, the process instructions is given when the policy agenda strong is not simply what's mental. Simple solution. The thesis of the turn is experts are best at the job. If that's true, they would never deregulate something. The cause extinction. Chaotic deregulation is hard for business, even if they generally prefer lax rules burden. Traffic on grants and abundant markets, especially on strong sales release, global economy, short long-term law, central value, county, so no refreshing directors matter. Personal real news, real drag, competitors, selling commerce, special cost options, what everybody got the bullshit, very investment, innovation raising. The prices mark that. The prices, the great card is an affirmative card. The support investors want to invest in the U.S. because they expect Trump to pursue a deregulatory agenda. The plan doesn't change that, it just ensures autonomy over implementation, which is handled, but it goes on to say that that won't work because Trump and he's are overly protectionist and fight against foreign investments and explicitly impacts that they will, quote, compromise its deregulatory aspirations and make FDI, quote, impossible. It's why the plan solves, which is inserted in the doc. Matt Lovitz is wrong. It's only saying that the U.S. won't be as bad as Hungary, not no impact. And Senate checks his life, both HSC and Johnson are in Trump's pocket. Yes, poly crisis are internal things that Trump breaks the poly solutions, which manage it now, that's Homer Dixon. Now, the spec is wrong. Counterintuitive says U.S. Say U.S. Usable means again. Urban self-certification kind of finds its best. One F ground, ultimately agent process kind of finds the afterwards topic. Second, overspec. It destroys the -3 cross-X checks. 4 knows basis about the center spec, which one's at the F5, not a voter just forces specified reasonably best. Good is good, nothing else. Erase the bottom. 2 subsets. Counterintuitive, no article means yes, subsets, main arguments, 79 political should be combination, combination, section, complication, relationship, rather than pressure, prefer one, guard positions, matter of fact, turns everything else, second, after, big segment, enterprise, industry, or region, are worse than negative, unpredictable, have no literature, 3 mixes, burdens, whether or not every work is effective, depends on if they want to join a union for no offense, view advocates, cabinet, econ, line, and states, full 6 or 5 ways, reasonability test, and the cross-line, Mueller might be limited to apps and only use CBR to a specific contract term, but it's not a definition, just as the meaning is ambiguous, ILO does not mean that the plan has to apply to every worker, just that every person employed is a worker. We did not qualify strengthen, which is what substantially modifies, so that definition is relevant, but restore synonymous, calls for advertising incentives, restore AI counterpart. Perm do both, you can restore collective bargaining and then replace them anyways. The counterplan's fiat ensures, even if it's weird, it is not technically mutually exclusive. The Perm do the plan and restore AI, it's not textually intrinsic in the doc. Perm do the counterplan, it doesn't solve diplomacy. AI can negotiate or have personal relationships with other diplomats, which gives us is key. It doesn't solve non-compliance, it's about the public pressure that federal unions put on Trump to follow the law. Robots can't do that, which is the blog evidence. Doesn't solve polycrisis. Trump won't listen to robots if he doesn't want to. And there are no rights to ensure that he does. It doesn't solve opaque risk in the Shulman evidence because there's nobody to actually enforce the policy, just a bunch of robots who cannot actually do regulations, cross-apply deficits from the CBR pick, and AI-powered administrative causes extinction, conflict, something that does emergency erosion against other society, and human rights, common life, like rights, and years, the use of AI by government state data, extinction analysis, you have to result in the economic section, not the accountable, computer, overlords, no impact to debt, could be 24 percent because about that, only the president, about high express, stories, the economic things, so I suppose, but one side is a big number of expenses, but more office, sustainability, citizens, debts, problems, and reflection, legislation, UP, reject readiness, impact is empirically denied, OH, COVID, and the government just spelled about, no impact, Mueller, actually, the act turns the impact because readiness is useless, so we don't have diplomats to effectuate it. CBR pick. Perm to the counterplan, perm to the plan in every combination. CBRs are key for enforcement in disputes, resistance to loyalists, and substantive expertise, which with the whole when I see perception alone is sufficient. Otherwise, workers' power work that's when you had this. In verse 24, example legislative problems, effectively, short legal and involved mention, the gas should be considered appropriate and protect the rights. Increasing non-CBR protections doesn't mean anything. The counterplan text does not specify what protections it does, so we get new answers. But if it's employment, it fails. Already filed the EEOC, so there's no formal lawyers, fails, removal of EEOC commission doesn't catch our costs, doesn't invest in work protection, and ability to bring over. That'll be also rescinding the XO for federal employment law. It will take place, and Trump determines what now reverse impeachment doesn't act, or the civil service will cower or quote without the legal certainty that a person can override, cannot override CBRs, but fiating someone resigns is cheating. It's an attitude, not a policy, which is unpredictable. And on education, because no comparison, impacts fairness clash, no offense, they can impeach or issue a policy. Also links to every dissent because it returns to Biden era CBAs by impeaching them because he would be the next president's possession. Funding is insufficient. Agencies have the money now, just not the people. Just find it same with the staffing now. The perm to the plan and the competitive wages link. There's no link to the public union term. It's about the states because that's what they're referred to in literature, and there's no impact. Data just proves that they're unfireable. Wagner's translation of power not to more display the data information. Nothing to you. Capcake. Framework: the ballot is referendum on the plan's desirability, placement, possible, and unique, the solving federal government, and else, particular rules, one to see, guessing, procedure, and in the class, permanent both of that severance to the plan and not mutually support to the all. The ONC was always already critiquing capitalism, plans, and prerequisites, going in, and trying to revolutionize all the government against former non-government, just in order to success the diversion of examining capitalism, game of politics, change of mind, to another game, losing the rules, and not political options, supposedly because of the conflict, point to trying to act as usual, but like capital references, capital work out, during the other corruption of capital, which was meaningfully liberatory to have the state's ability to capital, all their descendant agencies like despite working with the laws and capture to a fishery, automatic change of all the resources, gave her the education of power, money for reparations, the plan scheme sustainability, 124 political stability, short-term corruption, like enforcement, stability, considering access to environmental forces, independent better, rating attributions, and challenges, and for state, the ability to control pollution, and interest in the social talk about something else, security, responsibility, the social nice for transparency, and challenge practices, and government policy, corruption, environment, education, governance, or running which is and political enforcement state. The alternative is if forgetting that people change their minds, or by imagining that the USFG's ideological line is voter, it's plan plus, and nullifies all comparative literature, or there's a crackdown to because Trump, whatever. While the alternative happened, Buddhism came. HarpCon is originally going to separate RS because they did will read a card when they read a complete argument, firm to both, firm to the plan and non-mutually support to the alternative. There's no link, we don't reject suffering, just think that minimizing is best. And they did the same thing, the all fails because it's not difficult to restore CPRs for federal workers, so the AFSA dissent to it, energy dissent. Our scenarios were about guardrails, or cross-apply that from the other dissent. Uniqueness overwhelms. The F can never raise prices by maintaining status quo regulation, so at worst they just stay low. Expertise turns energy dominance. It's key to all of it, all the change 25 mass levels, urban energy is back to drill, cost agencies, crucial permits to slow down, producing oil and gas, power, reduce critical losses later, cancer, sentinel, battery, jumps, regular, taking over, taking over, social crucial, and back out, slowing, and for that, the latest permit, to the higher new running permit, standard impacts of your good now. We've always had rights for drilling, and prices fluctuate. It can't solve energy dominance at that record highs daily. 24 to 20% of limits for oil and money over more exposure for more reduced from travel time, change commoditization by reference and how more concerns A plus transfer produce oil lower prices calculated per ton, kind of makes the dollars use and puts a hard action during market caps all thinking how to push oil is saturated market prices low unlikely. And there's Bernhard doesn't mention deregulation, they've never read internal link, and he's a Trump loyalist. Was the interior secretary in Trump one, look at the clause they put, is absurd cross supply, not hard to fire lives, which is the only warrant. Forget about this propaganda was 24 war on substitution, false statements, and dishonest arguments, what a mass monster. The high school also warning Russian problems, uses false arguments, reminders of integrations, and OUV solves, which is their own evidence, no impact, and 24 whatever below your business watching exercise, when Asian sources and Asian solar costs of fast and demand in free fall, market at free fall, matrix. Impact is empirically denied by the past 2 years, and civil servants solve it because if the Golden Dome is because if their impact is true, civil servants will know to not to the Golden Dome courts. Don't link them to something commercial and judicial checks of the political reality, so recognizing the politicians about judicial responsibility to blame, especially because it's in the Fifth Circuit now. Least necessary means would just be denied cert and other anti-Trump court rulings for excluded Dems. Don't have a platform so they lose Anderson and leveraging conflicts have violence for the rhetorical opportunity of holding a large position of very tax fixing the world front. But then there are always proposals of land voters never tried to Democrats will limit toward proposals of invasion of voter registration of the land voters extraordinary rather than going to by 30 more margin majority of issues no link ruling over executive action. Whenever get paid on Republicans and it's perceived as Trump losing in the court, black swans like foreign policy crisis and mean demonstrating it's too soon, but the plans have lost for Trump and unpopular for Trump and war force forces just by the position of president president not power developer 7% now 71% a year ago also immigrants would have fired any civil for any reason. 2016 2024 proof polling sucks and the plan determines whether Trump can interfere to rig the election. The Golden Dome is wrong. Internal evidence is speculative. Doesn't say Dems would fund it, just that they might, and it would take decades and no impact on the 25% of U.S. regardless of domestic and certainly factors by actions like facing challenges and no emergency solutions. It's not a long missile defense taking taking changes instruction. System fight missiles the concept of missiles technology it also in the ways that you can develop the avoid possessing more critical missiles as possible around biological ways while many interruptions on other missiles like saturated reporting anti-gravity kind of Russian monitoring decoy technology. No, the uniqueness contemplated does not solve perm to both, perm to the combination doesn't solve cheating. But morals don't link to rules 25 trust department investigate prosecute those who have others vote to use that negative action both industrial efforts to difficult in elections perception is key. That's morals are 25% influence star distribution others support election not others and close control have chilling on workers organization membership for the workers against voters leave for jobs longer for wage rights as stakes rise president replied official 2026 more than 26 conduct is bad because signals are good research institute you think counter to participant when first or theory equals kick. Almost forgot that one. I'm good.
Okay, the argument that your scenario is about policy enforcement, not the policies themselves, is it your position that this means the plan does not affect deregulation?
I mean, what do you mean by affect deregulation? Like wholesale?
Like the plan does not stop, for example, Trump from deregulating America's energy.
Hold on. So the argument is that the plan does not control the the direction of the regulation, like Trump's priorities as like the president of the United States. But it does affect how those things are implemented and enforced.
Okay.
There's a meaningful distinction. Like the law's on the books. You can't just
internally is pretty specific that it's about the actual policies that Trump pursues diplomatically with
regard to like all the countries you say we're gonna go to war with?
Right. No,
How
no,
does
the Cambridge Card is not about which policies, it's about how they are pursued. So
Well, no,
the
like for
internal-
example, it says like Trump will give Ukraine to Russia. That will be bad. How does like giving
Right.
them Ukraine better solve
obviously
what
that
this
isn't
says
a
causes
like
more
obviously
of
giving
this?
Ukraine to Russia isn't a policy that is like in American
That's
statute.
like, that's like the treaty that it says Trump is going
No.
to sign. But like
no,
same
that,
with
so
just,
the,
like-
that scenario is a perfect example because Trump is claiming those things. So we need diplomats to be able to back channel Ukraine's diplomats and be like, don't worry, he's just a guy, he's talking,
wait,
like
but
don't worry about it.
this
But
is
it's not
Trump
like
is
literally in the
literally
books.
gonna sign treaties
Yes,
with
but he literally
authoritarians.
isn't. Like he hasn't.
But your evidence says he's going to. But that's
No,
fine.
it says the
Okay.
threat makes adversaries scared and
FDI.
emboldens
Oh,
adversaries.
okay, I don't think that's quite what it's saying. But FDI, what countries do you think are liable to divest now?
Which countries? I don't have a list of who the biggest investors in the U.S. are, but our card is like pretty spectacular that they would pull out of the United States.
Okay, who would we go to war with?
Well, so there's actually two internal links to two like scenarios in the FDI world. The first one is not only that so it's not only that a loss of FDI causes war, but also that the presence of FDI is a deterrent to go to war. But like who, like any of our adversaries, China,
But
Russia,
what is the
Saudi
scenario?
Arabia, Iran, North Korea.
China, Russia, North Korea, Iran don't have high investment in the U.S. Why does it matter?
That's
that
actually
those
not
countries
that true.
divest?
China's like a very big investor in the United States.
Okay, like Russia, Iran, North Korea.
I'm pretty
do
sure-
any of those matter? Are those invested in the U.S.?
I think so, but I guess like we can like Google it and like cut a chart or something.
Okay, sure. The midterms DA, you said that wait, why is it claiming key to energy dominance?
Yeah, that card's actually like friggin'
My
phenomenal.
question is why.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it so I can like cite the warrants. The cards they are necessary to deregulate and do permitting. So loyalists, when they write like legal
They're
memos
key
to
to deregulate?
well, if we were going to, we need people that actually know how the law works. The card says that when loyalists try to like do deregulation, they write law that gets like challenged in court because they like literally are like just Trump's buddies and not actual lawyers. So yeah, replies to you.
Yeah, no, that was the first one.
Okay, what is the implication for these like EOC cards?
Well, in cross-ex, you've asked you like what the counterplan
sure.
did, and you were like employment law probably like merit stuff. We don't think that works. Also, it might get cross-applied to the AI counterplan if that turns out to have anything to do with like employment law. But it was kind of unclear with number 1 and 2.
off at this tournament?
Okay, I'm like blaming it 100% on. Do you know Glenn? Yeah, I figured. Glenn, he's on our team, and I was feeling great. We came in. I heard him have like a little cough. I had to share a room with him. Woke up, scratchy throat on yesterday. Motherfucker.
June has been sick since Gonzaga.
Really? I got like weirdly sick before Gonzaga and then recovered kind of quickly. And now Glenn got me again. But the thing that really is bothering me is like he refuses to admit it was him. He's like, no, dude, it was somebody else. Meanwhile, he's like up at like 3 a.m. coughing his damn wife out. Like,
somebody texted me earlier being like, every single team that I've judged this tournament has had like a gross ass cough. I haven't seen it yet. That's also because I've just been judging like MSU campus on tournament.
that's the dream, right?
Nice. So.
Stick, the automation counterplan, T subsets, the Buddhism K, the energy DA, the midterms DA, but just condo, if that helps her close it all.
Wait. Slow down a sec. T subsets, then energy descent?
T subsets, Buddhism.
Buddhism, of course.
Energy.
Energy descent, yep.
Midterms, but just
Midterms,
condo.
just condo,
This
yeah.
is then the cap K, then agent specification, then advantage 1, then advantage 2.
Taking the entire one seat?
Well, midterms is just condo though.
Oh,
Famously.
right.
Famously just condo.
I guess I am actually taking the entire
Yeah,
one
you
seat.
know, that's all of it off. There's every single one's in there. Hold on, let me, like,
Stop. We should just sit here.
hold on, I need one more sheet for what's actually being said. Alright, I'm good.
Okay.
The Common Association in the case of adopts and non-collective employment protection for all federal workers, collective bargaining is not synonymous with civil service. The Common kicks out of unions, but for stores, merit-based hiring, forecast protections, whistleblower rights, and various individual employment contracts, civil service protections are currently better. The collective bargaining with the 23 unit provided the overall government unity of the civil protection agree against this treatment loss of 1% for cannot be given for and really not treated for agree the accountability civil service protection studies established by worker like perfect sector public right adversarial relationship representative and the sure director of like an incentive but a solid as OJ's allied by government union interest good interest for snakes falling into us. Sufficiency claims that the common is good enough because there are sources of protection specified in 1C classics, the threshold for a deficit is the human race must go extinct without public sector unions. MSU's evidence is generally talking about worker protection, and bargaining key was just an assertion and extension. The 1C evidence but did not extend specific words, so the one who should not get to do so evaluate the comment relative to the quo. It's a massive change that would reverse nearly all of Trump's XO and take over the horses of hostility. The CSS in 921, the understand federal worker got a massive protection, the work for law for everybody's education, sexual stop protection force, the short period protection use the hard person body, the runs independent jury city design, and a personal capacity. The comment sends a powerful message which is more certain. Fed manager 25 record to read federal police Friday also provided send the message. The terminal feature added the workers not expendable could separate sorting and training federal. The policy protection of higher opportunity appeal. Never spreading a white spread for labor groups. Do the comments severance, which is a voting issue for neg ground and clash. The comments only mandate is a pick out of collective bargaining fiat sweeping employment protection for quote non-CBR protection. This quite literally cannot be the plan. Employment laws legally safe record. Let's see the philosophy of the concept of employment like federal court take over the issue not even very difficult intervention employment law. Much more middle of the labor employment law and court first video. Variations laws are growing in complexity. It competes CBRs require dictating unionization. Sean told us whatsoever. Human employee regulars or organized union employer wanted to negotiate employment. Union enter CBA. Prefer employment destroys ground by thumping DA links and job security protections. Explodes limits to the infinite workplace and employment tweaks. Perm due to common links to the internal benefit includes unions. Now CDR key nukes solvency enables obstruction. Now worker protection. Tracy's only card to answer any of this was not firing. That was not the only warrant in the one in unions or groups that rent seek in a form of dues and government benefits. Their primary industry is assuring survival for the union, not its members or good policies. And it includes dozens of collections. The economics will do every help to choose on collective bargaining. There's many clips to do the collateral factor innovation for the student bargaining. University of California. This is one part getting recorded as students 718 over make up the one go. One keep us at the covered was a companies employer bargaining with every union, but it doesn't need to show up chaos. But the CBO key is solved by voluntary bargaining and employer contract filled with 20 the system people directly for disability states like bargaining unit and collects carriers where the police choose their negotiation individual unions with the state that volunteers the union monopoly portion of pollution not negotiation the social trade association union state of for all the EOC and employment cards durable fiat solves this because it would probably include restoring any of the stuff the 2AC deficit card said. But if not, it is irrelevant. They come in durable fiat protections. The vagueness goes both ways. They specified CBRs. We can specify non-CBRs and then cross-ex. Now the internal net benefit functionally dropped. Public sector collective bargaining. They're structurally doomed to fail. Lack of market means bargaining gain equilibrium because there aren't competitive prices. It's impossible to decipher a bargaining range in unions that to preserve rents, which increases debt loss, which is Epstein. It's fundamentally different from other unions because they'll stall to protect their jobs. Epstein's money hard rate. They're leaving about loss to do because others are parties overcome hurdle for the booking. It's from the state of your experience something we can't figure out good off because you know what it looks like before the best we're going to cut up the relationship of opposed business and anyway. It's how the market differs. It turns expertise unions make it impossible to fire poorly performing officials with evidence which the 1NC card answered it. Now the independent internal benefit agency flex is straight turns the case. Union obstruction systemically disempowers agencies, preventing quick policy shifts that are necessary to respond to integrated and emerging threats, cyber, energy, and disease, which is the one with evidence. Kick all the other non-bargaining plays, not going to go for it. Theories which is reject that argument, not the team, or was just by the conduct. Now the automation compound, the compound straight turns every part of the case. I'm not going to go for the compound proper, so kick it, but they drop multiple reasons that humans fail. One, cognitive bias, skews probability assessment and planning capacity. Second is corruption, prevents acting in public interest. Third is demotivation, working sucks, employers stop fraud and waste and misallocate resources. They are overconfident, so they miss threats. Equity is wrong because they are more racist in the government. Data processing, human predictions are uninformed, and efficiency. Every step of the process is slowed down by bureaucracy. All in one and Bullock all drop. Then our specific names polycrisis and says that humans are way too siloed and reactive, so they can't respond to the polycrisis at all. All deficits of the case drop by the 2AC. The 2AC card that they read is not offense for the case because there's no uniqueness for it. There's no uniqueness for it, and all admin seat defense on the other page would get rid of it, and the DA would turn it. Now T subsets actually I definitely was overambitious, not going to go for it. Concede reasonability applies to condo. The energy, the Buddhism K perm, it was stupid. The energy DA. Concede uniqueness overwhelms, so no low prices. Dumpers, EU solves, and US LNG not key. It takes out any risk of offense, and the terminal impact would probably be triggered by the midterms DA. Now, the midterms DA. Condo is good against new undisclosed advantages. One is block skew, F, changing the 2AC. The cars multiple options, and they turn sandbagging, which undermines caution, turns skew second. This neg flex, neg is always reactionary to F, choice to infinite prep, and test the intrinsicness. The unpredictable advantage, add-ons, and deficits, but new undisclosed advantages are voted by skewing pure prep. And F, fairness. Third is arbitrariness, no differences separating models, no basis for theory. Unpredictable rule is worse than none. It always shifts the goalpost, remaining neg. Predictability. 4 is logic, finding the best policy option. Districting advocacy does not make the plan good. Also concede predictability from T, which makes arbitrariness bigger. 5 is innovation. Risk aversion mandates fallbacks for safety, testing, and experimentation. Skew and research are networked up by D's and procedures. Dispose ad hoc condo in disguise makes afters too powerful. Incentivizes process and playing stand causes. The research and balance. The cap K. Concede plain desirability. Condo does not meet that burden. But the sustainability cannot be offense for them. Endless profit causes biodiversity loss, resource shortage. And then climate change, which is a durable evidence, regulated capital scale, cost of 20 regulated little work to determine profit nucleus. Not to intervention between budget to resources and local opportunity power reducing market guarantee. Never also combating climate false view of just policy measures operating structure reform cap companies reduce profit over and reform cap brings faster growth. A-spec concede no res basis for theory also applies to condo. Now the expertise advantage, the admin state fails, it lacks competition and diversity. Institutional solitude suppresses dissent and can transfer no cost and no counterfactuals for bad policy. Do not presume effective policy, especially when groupthink and ideological presuppositions. Cloud judgment, which is locked out 08 proofs. The author indicts for both this card and the chronic card is irrelevant. They both have doctors and are experts in their field, and your cards are probably liberal hacks, so it equally applies. Asserting that in Trump's pocket could mean that you're in liberal's pocket, so it's irrelevant. Expertise and delay. Number 2, Hammer 20. I'm in part of the rational decision. I'm actually experts on identity, Arabic, those one in the confusion. Many agencies expert in two bases of civilization. Biases occurred by special interests and or specialist agencies that such as specialization. Otherwise, experts often the knowledge industry caucus would be more likely to evaluate. Words of public interest caucus actively motivate agents right until others register card. And contact must wait for permission. Expertise, Trump can't listen. Keeping them in his admin isn't a match one. The Afghan fiat, Trump listens to bureaucrats. He's the boss and goes with his gut. He could independently first strike a country. They're sure to demonstrate the fallibility of the case, but they also failed. Their judgment is overwhelmingly warped by anti-Trump hostility, biasing them towards obstruction. And then link-turning policy effectiveness, which was the 1 and C evidence. There's no impact to the foreign service. The layoffs are modest and focus on superfluous and non-essential personnel. The State Department was already bloated and unmanageable, and not a single firing affected the overseas diplomats who actually conducted foreign relations, asserting that Trump is intervening in the Middle East and Taiwan, or in Latin America and Taiwan is irrelevant because neither have escalated. So the past 6 months is terminal defense into the case, but also all of those were rational actions that deterred our adversaries. There's no impact to his foreign policy. He's a restrainer who's campaigned on ending overseas conflict. Guaranteeing de-escalation. Unpredictability is better though because adversaries don't know how to hold back. Fear of overreaction keeps putting in change check, which is an answer evidence. Now, transnational relations prevail. Transparent incentive. Transnational relation how we promote. Be still when you bring together Turkey, Egypt, Israel, US, and the conflict, and spreading general further conflict. Christian NATO territory spent or Gaza deal and political exchange providing separate long term. Why not supply the model Ukraine and other conflicts such as Russia, China, Africa, and the Middle East, will find kind of in other areas. The middle powers are useless. Powerful countries outweigh. They can't balance interests, information shortfalls, and are generally overreached, which is the 1 and C. Woods evidence. Also, concede on the automation view. We didn't read the debt net benefit you should have flowed in. Readiness numbers, 08, etc. all take up this impact too because it proves that conflict doesn't escalate. The non-compliance advantage. Not going for the turn, but investors don't know that fiat is real or the plane that is durable, so general uncertainty makes this chaos inevitable. Courts check Trump down. Robert's which is rule against admin starting some more than after movement. Where the admin from his foundation making new possible judges who are federal judges sort of for time. He just present Trump by against the justice system. Judges are not going to go doing their job. There's no impact of personalism in US democracy. There's a slew of firewalls outside of the exec, including Congress, veto powers, gates, and state level pushback. Checks and balances have held for centuries due to the evidence more votes like in 919 American. Democracy was only limited to economic RTK through others here. NASA, federal income 23,000 0% change of civil rights of wealth program resource institute. Just balance the record of release of policies defending democracy approved 80% twice in Trump's doubtful Trump could survive the crisis market crisis. There's no impact of poly crisis. Intervening actors create poly solutions. COVID stimulus and warp speed prove adaptation shock, including Trump 1.0. Error neg. Interconnection is hype. Humans are cognitively biased to recognize connections. Every analytic is neg. Judgment in 23 buzzwords. Your poly crisis morning use of negative feedback gives us monthly far from all these super poly crisis and follow. Mechanism that push back shocking naked research study. Research testing found little empirical support. Mark the card empirical support. There's no FDI. It's stumped by tariffs, which is their interlink, but that should have derailed investment. It's plummeting. Also, in 18 for the 30 world FDRs US over like 40% to 20 years doctor. Reform as clubs expansion for business doctors for business expansion. Plus the appears no internal war in 20 wars tend to recruiting country for lower investment. Did equally evidence peacekeeping FDR for alternate explanation of primacy of MAGA FDR coffee. But policy war also investment sort of increase for investment. Next experience of the investment for most speeds.
Mark Murray or I finished Murray.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. The agency flex net benefit to the CPR pick, the terminal impact to this, you think is just the affirmative again, yeah?
Yeah.
Like you think it's just like a straight turn? Okay. And midterms is a net benefit to this or no?
No.
No. Okay. Got it. The CBR's the McDonald card you read on there. He's like the guy for the Federalist Society. Why should we believe him about like CBRs?
Honestly, if you had said Chicago School or Federalist Society bad, we have these insane cards like Mercatus and the Chicago School.
Well, I hadn't said it yet because you just read it in Twin.
Well, the one in C card was also from both. I mean, though Epstein is like the Federalist Society Chicago guy, so like you actually could have said it in the Tweety.
Right.
So I'm not answering this. Our guy's credible, and that's it.
Well, I can say he's pretty covered. Okay. So the internally to agency flex is you said not only that you can't fire bad people. What else?
Dead weight loss, like money wise, also.
What does that? What is the impact to that? You haven't read a card that's like dead weight loss equals turns case.
Our one in C evidence actually does. It says that it slows down the ability for regulations to pass. It also increases distractions for unions. Unions are more focused on like literally their existence rather than anything else.
Right,
so
but where have you read a card that's like unions focusing on the wrong thing equals extinction?
Well, to be clear, it equally matches the absence ruling. You've said that expertise and regulation enforcement are good. Our evidence says that unions are way slower and less efficient. The example for this is unions bargain over like windows and whether they have enough bathrooms. All of those mean that the more time they spend on bargaining over bathrooms, there's less time they bargain over, trying to stop Trump.
Right, but they've been bargaining over things like since their inception, right? Like unions were created by the CSRA in 1972, and they've been bargaining over all these things for all this time. Clearly, the federal government is like pretty efficient.
We actually
like
disagree.
You disagree?
Yeah.
With what? On what basis?
Well, every basis that they're actually not very efficient.
Right, but like clearly that has not caused the affirmative's impacts because your argument is unions bargain over useless things equals extinction. Unions have been bargaining over useless things since 1972 and no extinction.
You said polycrisis are emerging now, so unions can't solve those. But the polycrisis events didn't exist in like the early 2000s.
Okay, so that's the only impact you go for. Is like polycrisis began in 2024 when Trump got elected, and
we
that's
can
the
have-
only
no,
unique
okay,
impact that isn't empirically denied.
What's great is all of the cases. Like the impacts you have are current.
Well, no,
conflicts
because
and hot
your
spots.
internal link is empirically denied, and ours is empirically true.
No. Well, no. It's a question of impact. Our internal link is true, but there's just never anything existential on the table. Now that we, I guess, technically, given the 1AC could go to war with China, Russia, Iran, etc., there's an emerging polycrisis and environmental disease threats, etc. All of those are emerging risks now that the counterplan would say unions would be bad for.
Okay, the card that you have about, like, you know, take it from the horse's mouth, this card doesn't seem to be about, like, the counterplan's, like,
It
fiated mandate. It says, like, reorganizations. Is that part of the counterplan's
all of
fiat?
those are non-employment CDR, are non-CDR protections.
Okay, got it.
Consent.
Just care if I go to the bathroom before we want. Sorry.
You're an L.
Yeah, I wonder what's about to happen. Unkick the cat gang.
Dude, imagine.
So kind of nice to unkick stuff.
I'm always worried.
That's criminal.
Well, not on purpose.
Like he would kick out
It's just
something
like,
and then you would be like,
they
wait, that's
think
not
you're not going
Yeah.
for it and then out of left field.
Yeah, no, it wasn't like a strategy. It
I'm
was
actually-
an error.
I'm more worried Eleanor's going to kick back into it. Just backlash. Challenge mode.
Well, just don't do
If
anything
you
to deserve it.
accepted Buddhism, I think.
Guess I can do that.
I don't know, dude.
I saw that and I thought about just skipping it. Just refuse.
That's why it's the first thing. Can't skip the first thing or else it's too clear or stupid.
Well, no, A-Spec was the first one.
Buddhism was also the first off-case position that I debated her. And she was like, that's just stupid. I'm like, no.
I had a Buddhism moment. I get kind of happy to start, you know?
Yeah. It happened, well, Dustin sent it to us because
Yeah.
it was a high school thing, I guess. Which I guess Buddhism.
Dustin's also the reason that I had a Buddhism moment.
Classic.
I think maybe.
There's a lot of things you can blame on Dustin. Were the cards good?
One of them was, yeah.
Which one?
The neon go-kart.
Neon? I don't think so.
I think it's new.
It wasn't read by ES against being in Gonzaga Active.
Yeah, I think that. I don't think we've said that one before.
Neon go. Those cards.
It
Were
was
you mad?
it was better.
Yeah.
It was more specific. So it's the one that's like trans and queer women.
Oh.
It was not ES. He was kind of spitting with that one. Much better than Rango, which is
Oh, yes, this one is new.
yeah. See, I needed those updates.
It's so good we're reading this thing.
Which set?
It's so good we're reading this thing.
Before the debate started, I asked to forward me the DML answer to captives.
Yeah.
So that was the context.
Yeah.
Okay. Order is non-compliance and then midterms.
Wait, hold on.
We'll be done.
Everyone's good. Okay. No interdependence impact. 2022. Trade on the natural solution piece of action. Small benefits of these trade. The US trade was 1.2% of GDP. It was one larger than trade. Trade timing. Revolution. Flu. Several long-term business. Take trade. UTP. ROC. International wars. Difficult to say. It's over. Besides, go to the midterm Z. The D outweighs one magnitude. Orbital defense ends. Defense ends 7 decades of math, forcing a rush for new weaponry like ASATs and hypersonics. The resulting wars involve more nukes, making our war bigger than theirs. 2 time frame. Russia and China strike before the system comes online. What is ready for Russia to the system and updated to recover Delta on the US prior to the compilation nuclear international moment with is partial MD 3 control T GOP control of the House Rover Steam Starts Commercialism Depth Off Keys. Many 24 proposed that the data structure every For Trump, 2AC was allergic to warrants. Don't let them turn blips into an entire 1AR or 2AR. They say denied. It is defense to the app since he's been president for 2 years, but not defense to the neg because he has not yet appropriated enough funding. Civil service doesn't solve, but they wouldn't stonewall the Golden Dome. When they spent the entire 2AC in cross-sectioning that the civil service doesn't influence policy, they just carry out Trump's policy is better. They say no link because the courts, one, working class people predistribute policies to the Democrat signature. It's just their ceiling that they can flip committed to partisan. This enables the DOD to rebrand itself as pro-worker voting. Working class independents and swing districts as average. Treatment of federal workers is about whether for labor issues, quote, as treatment of federal workers goes, so goes the rest because they pulled in the private sector workers. That's Smith. Federal workforce policy sends to the private sector about whether to roll back or acquiesce. And so let me put it right in the same world, so good to be a regular first receiver as single liberal technical budget over where the union they not face to make it ever not your traffic control, demonstrate the leverage we have taking universal approach to CB is overwhelming the popular social 25 federal workers 60% response is not supported. Two, checking Trump and unchecked Trump will seek MAGA forever, especially with working class voters. Those are key constraining him. Those the GOP a lifeline. While 24 to the plug in control please president comes with MAGA policies over the person safety regulation of the story safety worker objective responsibility to more limited their attention to Portillo info, which is not going to be effective action to attempt be the one game and only with the working class American federal government Trump's coalition should see the Uso's interests in the policy enacted in the president best way to make the previous level of always missing people clear up that to the expectation and with the no return over systematic action required to get over to the source of the British being a peaceful of South Government into limited infrastructure, keeping terminal loyalists echo chambers to a midterm blowout. Israel 24. That much more over the midterm and middle when you are from the people to measure around committee or teacher to be valid things like the political decision or bleeding Trump to together tolerance of voters. The courts cannot shield one topic. The result requires a legislative instrument. Let's see if I look at the legal declaration use the term resolve. The requires all three majors bigger ones or empty that would be important for the noun to indicate or reference to the quote Trump as a whole. So does the United States federal government use legal 16 English speeches to reduce legislative executive judiciary. Collective bargaining rights require legislation 119. We heard that this would be made up for legislative the courts vote on T. Legislative actors dodge for DAs and split the top safety actors. Two still links court shields assumes other branches shall public size that can be on the planet and size ever legislative future over the metropolitan makes the quality move and do really registered voters. Lawmakers for with the Richmond taking position on the purported judicial overreaching Trump would relentlessly remind voters about the Africans of political win, especially given that his nomination to the current conversation and be a 24 Trump trying to take credit to his decision with the president with including the three constitutionalists confirmed under the balance of the court as a current majority. Trump takes credit for the rulings even against him. Make over 25 commissioners have congratulated the person anti-restoration of which is admin of the first one to just about Trump to announce offensive which will be vainglorious to social or post I reverse because it was my honor to do so. Courts, the president gives credit to 15. The political way we mostly other president parties of the way the American public were the president is USA will get credit for things like econ and the book. What's up with them? They say liberal court rulings some this is just a Carlos assertion. I counter assert that they will not contradict the Treaty. They said Trump is already non-compliant. Only the plan compels compliance. All courts are high specific to labor and federal workers. They see Dems like a platform. The Dems win one polling market at 70-30 for Democrats. Pricing in F1's polling market is reliable. Cutting Twitter the first system of the political program motivation and actors are pulling in self-elections and person in degree political severe to willing in this specific level of ready union can be the polls to history recent elections and Trump's approval redistricting one to move the needle. That's all this limit to the taxes work so let's get a term of 8 years that history of side of Trump everything so much it was during the first words so that they need up with his district and every cheaper Senate it is out of now 24 points there's a way I should have it was in the Trump review some for coalition area and let out community works and natural prediction only if you be return for it but I think that it is a virgin where his we got to return the times like side redistricting after time and settle. Then I've seen Anderson concludes the death will be fine. In 2010 proves our rudderless party can't sweep that Anderson elementary. The decision at face of vehicles that introduced the emergence of the Republican Party and the Republican Party materially different than the average of the Tea Party. Spread has been every things like that. So we're ready to prevent and they were another party sweet the little to dictate to the grassroots to cover them. To go for training to a credible message. Jane will be powerful. Pocketbook issues. McIntosh 11-14 Republican 20 February figures by the contact with the president of the state of the back of the 22 my confidence after not getting making you work overall conceded. The keep stable. They say perceived as Trump losing. It was answered above. They say black swans. One, price environment uniqueness forecasting how for uncertainty. Two, they're unlikely outliers by definition, and there's no reason to expect them. Three, negative consumption because the plan could happen tomorrow. And some black swans could reverse solvency, rejecting 1 year warrants because every number must be listed in the TBC. They will hurt, not help the duty. Wait, 11, 12. Midterms as Jake that will be Trump the thing that will work with the president on the choices and goes to escalate actual to well as we see this crisis nor a disaster. They say claims the loss that was all answered above. This evidence concedes 66% of Republicans still supporting nonpartisan civil service 25. Republicans do nonpartisan civil service reported and 66%. The uniqueness counterfeit solves. For both firms link because they make Trump really lose. It solves every way that Trump's implementing verbal pressure, perception of price, and people are perceiving threats now. But Democrats are still ahead according to quantitative metrics all explained above. Democrats will roll back the Golden Dome. The House sees the budget. Blue Rats won't find it because it's Trump national pet project aiming to capture his brain. That's a Cox 7. Golden Dome appropriations are on track now, and it'll be built. Host 1028. Trump is going to produce the Golden Dome to the highest priority. Golden Dome is moving according to overseeing funding and investment corporation. Golden Dome does nothing. And then like financially demonstrating the which online version of SBA can demonstrate the performance AEI is estimated total cost of $250 billion at $3.6 trillion. It's cheaper. Or 10.9. Golden Dome is additional to something in the fiscal closer to the biggest group and where it is an upgrade for infrastructure today. Advertiser innovating entirely different tech. Market entirely different tech.
Wait, sorry, that was heard?
Yeah. Entirely different tech.
Entirely different. Got it. Yeah, let me find it. 753.
753.
Can I just hear for that?
Yeah. I also didn't get it, but you can just say that out loud because it was. Wait, I'm also sending some D midterms first.
Orders the entire one, see.
Again.
I actually don't know what I saw on the page. Can't be the entire one, can it?
Definitely not.
It could actually include everything.
But you kind of left some gems sprinkled along the way.
Yeah. Oh, these are on the kicks or something.
Yeah. We're bringing it back, yeah.
This is round 7.
That's true.
Hold on, I'm setting that up.
Against her, I go complexity in Buddhism when I was kicking out of it. Could have done that.
Order is expertise, non-compliance, AI, admin kind of thing, CDR pick, planning kind of plan midterms.
Expertise, non-compliance, CBR pick. You have my AI load. Do you still need it?
Yeah, we're gonna go.
Great, I'll just go do sheet pick. And then midterms at the bottom. Just confirm expertise, non-compliance, CBR pick, AI kind of plan midterms.
Got it, dude.
Give me like 2 seconds to download both those and then I can paste it or something.
Was it the AI power plan first or the?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, AI before CBR.
Wanna make sure.
Who's the actually I'm just gonna just
Whose doc has more stuff? Is that
No, I was gonna say where should I paste it, but I accidentally put that one. 2 seconds. Okay. I am now good.
Okay. Okay, anyone good? Cool. Experts on all the reasons that MSU fails and they solve groupthink 1 Trump's work for it, trying to establish a single political opinion regarding policy, ensures groupthink 2 its empirically united experts before Trump was elected deliberated about the best policy option, but it's universal groupthink 3, the fact that people just looked at data and came to the same conclusion, is a feature of science, not liberal. Groupthink Belthouse is wrong, 1 Trump who worsens all those complaints, even if the app isn't perfect, things can get worse too. Votes out the law. Belthouse thesis expert failures of function polycentric governance. Belthouse in 25 advocates discretionary having power correct that the ecosystem best suited to mitigate expert failures of polycentric governance. That's precisely what the plan does in Belthouse 25 course. That personal action for the civil service law. Shit, polycentric governance. Buffer against IBS 3. Prefer the plans empirical studies under Trump. Not abstract complaints with the right wing. The next argument is Trump doesn't listen. Experts solve Trump's work as the worst accesses, even if he doesn't listen. Karate says civil servants are able to manage the fallout of Trump's irrationality behind the scenes and policy autonomy protections. And foreign policy and other contrasts are first internal doesn't require him to listen. Just a stable policy, making it learn for experts. The last couple arguments have been on if all their impact thesis about Trump is true, being about him being a rational actor, then it just means the civil service is key to guide him to being able to negotiate these perfect deals to resolving one of their conflicts, and it's not necessarily defense in a scenario that are terminal defense state expertise resolves existential or regional conflict. Expertism is key to manage regional policy conflicts, and Trump's reactionary foreign policy would otherwise activate multiple hotspots right for nuclear escalation, Taiwan, Ukraine, the Middle East, with the right of leaders versus chemists to Trump. The opaque risk of impact state capacities also opaque existential risk, the civil service management space, portfolio of existential risk, average affects every known risk, including nuclear security, pandemic response, environment, food safety, and war, showing which impact towards net benefit to the collective bargaining pick now, non-compliance, course checks are variously bad. All our scenarios require preventative actions to stop the escalation and cultivate diplomacy before conflict break out. They're checking him now, but he's disobeying the union lawsuit's key to bring him in, which is only our evidence. They only have defense to solvency of our. They don't have defense. They only have defense to solvency. They only have defense to our impact, not solvency. Existential blight crisis, guarantees extinction, overlapping structural issues, the economics, political polarization, environmental crisis, and disease, overall response capacity, which guarantees systemic collapse. It's unique. The accentuated by Trump, which is our addiction, our studies place in past poly crisis, and Trump's a historical trigger that brings policy solutions because both feedbacks are harms to declining state capacity are unprecedented in scope and severity. Now, the FDI thumped is cordless assertion. It's a critical result. Now, the AI picked the 2 and C plays through here, so I'm sure you missed warrants. 1, there's no cognitive bias, it's limited in scope. Plus, agency success in the past is disproved. 2, AI's programmed by evil people, so it also links to them since they're also corrupt. 3, the plan is key to solve worker overlord because it means that they negotiate for better working conditions. Now, the CDR pick permanent both. New advantages are good. They're not new. We read 2 new impacts. And to close the entire audience, otherwise keep the strategic thinking and get coaches out of the room. Now the CDR pick permanent both the confidence that benefit. And just the F again. insolvency isn't that benefiting the perm deficit. I don't think the 2NC had a word for what it links. Just reasserted it did. Is empirically denied. That was cross-sex unions have existed since the 70s. It didn't cause the ass impacts, even if they bargain over useless things. They also do critical functions, which is the whole 1AC, and drop the card. They can fire workers easily, which is the primary warrant. Sufficiency framing is bad because the plan is also better than the status quo, but all of our deficits should be framed through perception. The counter plan is less than the status quo, so workers are absolutely furious that they have less protections. Workers believe CDRs are necessary to check realization, secure policy autonomy, ability to whistle-blow, and to win challenges and redress if that fails. That perception determines retention and recruitment of expertise. And the government is the pushback that's Fist, Moynihan, Handler, and Morse can't overcome residual distrust. Lecture 9.4. What if you see the merit system as armor they have rather than neutral? Appearance of neutrality that controls will be difficult. Development merit, the psychological root of these perception deficits is that they don't trust processes they didn't have a stake in creating. Hodgson 90. We're able to negotiate more responsibility and needs decisions that result more acceptable. Having created a procedure, have a stake, minimize perceptiveness. I'm really make sure the process is therapeutic. Now, workers believe CBRs are necessary. Residual uncertainty from having their CDAs broken ensures that counterplan cannot restore trust. But only 25 absent a CDA lacks any guarantee job security, employee change, policy, but also the process is determined to develop the about. Could you sense psychological contract empirical app supports when workers perceive the job behavior risk effective and behavioral responses are negative? Prefer our evidence. It's psychologically and that analyzes the theory of job security and only answers and is only specific to our stuff. They may have cards that say employees are open to employment law protections, but our evidence is uniquely clear that they prefer that they would prefer the other protections otherwise. Now, the midterms DA. Golden Dome isn't effective, and it's a massive project that takes decades, so the midterms would have little proximate impact and wouldn't disrupt strategic stability. Defenses can be saturated, which is proven by the Israel-Iran war, and nerves and decoys reduce effectiveness as landing. One of our only answer feasibility. Not that it doesn't cause war, no new answers because it was tagged and highlighted. It's indefensible, it's infeasible, and done by elements of evidence of flattery. And 24 military semester Andromeda protect against threats anyway. Military ready deployment will system GMD. Designing knockout long range from North Korea. You can't pay the US, it's unrealistic, affordable, and unachievable. One of our hosts just says Lockheed is spending a demonstration, not that it causes war. Adversaries know it's a sham, so there's no reason to attack when our herd is marking too early into defense. Opinion, .com has no words about how effective it is. The GOP cannot solve the case because the Dems cannot solve the case. Those Carter's not about the plan. I'll answer the T argument here. Resolve this before the goal and not in the rest. Plus previous courts only topics is proved the US and G's and all. Branches Chicago and not a single entity when referred to the US. G has bodies, Congress, state, etc. Senior includes quarter interior saints in 14. The right to collective the Bergman determined by law and quarter interior statutes. Ambiguities looking case on Excel's preferred. Drop AG counterclaims battle ace back. Their interior makes it competitive. And zero background and reasonability cross flight. Now the working class appeal link. Don't link. A. It's not perceived as a Trump way. It's a reversal of his day when Excel's in the term explicitly says he's wrong, which he would never campaign on. B. Goldberg is terminal defense. Voters are changing parties, and parties are not receiving policies, and union voters are not calcified. That answers Rawls, C. Crest in the context of Holiday and Bates' perception of potential voters, not an empirical analysis of what union members would actually think. Now, no link to checking Trump. A. It's not perceived as a win. That was above. B. Public opinion is trending down with the civil service. It won't be perceived as a check on Trump. It will be perceived as an unpopular labor protection for the deep state. C. They have no reverse cause. So F. That says reversal of cuts is popular, just the cuts were initially popular. Huang concedes that policies alone can't mobilize supports. There has to be mobilization. There has to be messaging true. Trump would never sell the plan as a win because he hates the civil service, which we've inserted in green. Israel also concedes that messaging is key, and the economic issues matter more, which we've inserted in green. And none of their other, and the Yokley is about funding, which is not impacted by the F. Now, the midterms are unknowable. Black Swans make predictions impossible. Random forward policy crisis and Epstein are just a few. That's a 2AC card. The midterms are unknowable program. And 25 determining midterms being possible increasingly challenging to decipher recent cycles. Unmodelate, really understand playing field referee, draw districts, news from New York, try the same redistricting hamper. Republicans aren't sure, don't know how popular impact voters. Historically defines reps for the benefits of a funeral bill.
47. Yeah, definitely. Yes, right there.
expertise advantage, and then the non-compliance advantage.
You're welcome to order a new stand.
No doc yet.
No?
Okay.
No.
That wasn't me like imply I just
Yeah, I actually thought about it, she shot it down.
What?
What's wrong with that? Sorry, I guess every time I minimize, I gotta scroll to go to my okay. Good. Okay. Don't bust that when it controls the case. Madness held for 7 decades, and the whole for 7 more, including surviving the Cold War, Trump, and other madmen. Ensuring intervening actors will always check the case. The only difference in this destabilizing Golden Dome causes global arms racing, A-side hypersonics, and then advanced nuclear arms making any neg conflict categorically larger. And a status quo world peace government that also outweighs on speed. Russia and China, they should have perceived Trump but didn't strike, but they perceived immediately when Golden Dome is developed and funded, which means that the U.S. they would strike while the U.S. is vulnerable, which is the one in our Moroni evidence turns case. Zapped, try or die. Whatever committed a homicide said not about the plane. Irrelevant. Our evidence says that a dem when quote stimmies Trump's agenda, and then stops the repeal of the ACA stripping climate regulations, and then the only hurdle from Trump personalism, which means that it caps the risk of both advantages, because the Congress can still erode Trump presidency on either advantage from diplomacy and domestically. The one who said not about the plan is an utter disgrace, and the Twitter does not get any new warrants. Now, Golden Dome impact review, the answer their defense. It triggers arms races and drop Morani that says that quote Russia and China believe it. 2AC card says that budgets are key because Trump's pet projects winning it is effective is irrelevant because funding and attempting to operationalize it triggers our impact alone. Dumpers are also irrelevant because adversaries believe the House will win, so they haven't reacted yet. Host says that's the highest priority. Flattery says the military hasn't asked for it, but that's irrelevant because Trump is pursuing it anyways. Flattery is also just about North Korea, which isn't our impact. Adversaries care because it's a new innovative tech that doesn't exist in the status quo, which is why we're giving it to Lockheed. Adversaries think it's a sham. It's just an assertion, but they wouldn't risk updating that. Now, yes, link 1, checking Trump, gutting the federal bureaucracy exposes the consequences of MAGA rollback. Voters perceive the fair, the non-enforcement of environmental and safety regulations, reinstating the federal bureaucracy, makes Trump look effectual, so Democrats fail to capitalize in his dissatisfaction. Then firing the civil service and keeping Trump in a loyalist echo chamber causes erratic and ineffectual policy. Surrounding him with huge experts make him more tolerant to voters, which is irrelevant and Huang evidence. We have a link to the effect of the plan, so the Shields arguments are totally irrelevant. Second, this working class appeal. Federal unions are bellwether for party stances on labor, which is Smith and Sullivan. The plan realigned Trump with the working class, so they would hold on to swing voters by rebranding themselves as pro-labor. This is Abbott evidence. The plan is overwhelmingly popular, fixing one of Trump's worst issues,
which is a set of evidence. They say it's not perceived as a Trump in 1. It doesn't answer the checking Trump link, which is functionally dropped. Second is yes when Trump takes credit for court rulings against him, Trump, which is proven by his own self-contradictory public messaging, because he appointed 3 judges to the Supreme Court. Empirics proved when the court forced him to reinstate agency funding. He spun it as a win and said he was honored, which was McCoy. Voters are low information, so they don't know the difference, which is wrong. No one read a Goldberg or press card, so not sure what they're answering public opinion. It's not trending now. They dropped a re-highlighting of their card that the civil service is highly popular. 60% of Republicans want to maintain a nonpartisan civil service, and swing voters are necessary, so even if the general public doesn't care, the swing voters that would flood the House do. Yes, reverse causal or checking Trump evidence is the gold standard for reverse causality. But it says Democrats managed to rein in Trump, they are likely to lose, which is wrong in Israel. Policies require messaging. No message about the plan, and the messaging is not key to low and for swing voters, because they don't hear about it, but they do know the existence and experience of the federal government, which is wrong evidence. Yes, black slugs, 1, priced in and polymergate, but quite literally it is. Uniqueness forward shapes the direction of the link. 1 AR card. Dropped every 1 AR card that the House goes blue now. Second is black swans by nature are unlikely, so it should reduce it. 3, silly but drop. Neg on presumption because black swans can reverse solvency. And explicitly drop no new 1 AR warrants because it's late breaking and we couldn't have predicted which ones they listed. Bowie says it'll help them. Because the Trump crisis now only relies on our offense, but our uniqueness strains are Pergam is 3 months old. And then our Ev prices it in. What now? Midterms are noble. Democrats are leading the market in polling, which is cutting. Cheating redistricting won't move the needle, and history proves that incumbents are unlikely to. Now the unions pick every card on this page, the 1 AR links to the case drop. On the advantage that people don't know fiat is real and Trump is generally uncertain. It makes mistrust inevitable. Don't trust the process. Also links to the plan. So this deficit applies to the case. I shouldn't have to impact this out because they read the cards for us. So you should apply this at 100. SCB is broken. Also prove this. This is also the linear deficit to every second because every second union spend on interest groups, survival, and bathrooms is $1 and second less on them focusing on extinction, which is the McDonald and with evidence, which means that which multiplies every warrant on the case about how the bureaucratic labor deficits. And then the layers of the bureaucracy that we have in the case, what mitigates case solvency. I'm not going to go for it. The AI counterclaim. I might have been fast, but I did say some words that mattered. That the 1 AR drop. 1 is overconfident. Analysts miss threats because they think they know things. Second is predictions fail. And cognitive biases because they make uninformed decisions. Third is polycrisis. Carded in the 1 and C, especially because they are siloed and reactive, which is Bullock and Nascimento. Analytics on this page take out the first advantage because decline of readiness on advantage 208 and COVID did not cause a nuclear conflict. Now the expertise advantage. The 1 AR committed a homicide. I know Joanna will sound good on the case, but it did not have full warrants in the 1 AR, so you should strike it off your flow because they don't get a 3 NR. Compare absolvency to a blue house with the intent to obstruct Trump, not the status quo. Everything on this place also equally applies to advantage 2. Solvency should start at the 4. Lockdown says that you shouldn't presume effective policies given the government generally fails, even if Trump is bad, but groupthink depresses contradictions. There's no bad cause for bad policy. Experts fall victim to specialization bias. They are captured by industries. They're also slow and there are too many bureaucratic sites. Empirics are neg. The Fed ignored 08 warnings. This might sound silly, but we've survived 6 months of a reasonable Trump, so we probably survive a little longer. The re-highlighting solves one of the issues in the White House, not all of them. They cannot constrain Trump's worst ecstasy. Fully drop the experts fail because they are warped by anti-Trump hostility, so they do not do effective diplomacy. No foreign policy impact. Drop that layoffs in the State Departments are modest and non-essential, and it didn't affect the diplomats that actually mattered. The Cronin card also functionally dropped. He's rational. He's pursuing trade, peace deals in Gaza and NATO both through. That he's rational with his Angel and Chris, and no terminal to opaque risk polycrisis defense on the other page applies. And the House will inevitably solve it. Now, non-compliance. The 2 AR can never go for triad act on disadvantage because we have multiple layers. No uniqueness that cut against a road Trump. District courts are ruling against Trump now. 94% of times the libs win. Quote, formidable checks are happening, which is Roberts, which answers lawsuits key. And checks and balances, veto points, states pushing back. And secretaries of checks and balances, civil society is generally wealthy, so they don't want to go rogue, which is Malavik in the Whitlock evidence. No polycrisis impact. There are always intervening actors. Empirics from COVID and show adaptation. Air neg, cognitive bias means that you think their impact will be big, but Dresner says it's Malthusian buzzwords. And there are full mechanisms to push back. The 1 AR was basically a crossword of different risks, but did not explicitly answer either card or 2 and C warrants, which means that there's only a risk that there is a check on polycrisis. And in that context of the DA, the check is a blue house.
You got it? Non-compliance, expertise, CBR pick, AI kind of plan, midterms. So half the damn one.
Wait, here we go.
Non-compliance, expertise, CBR pick, the unions kind of plan, whatever. AI kind of plan, midterms. Hold on, I just unplugged my monitor, so now like all of my things are completely screwed. So I need like 1 moment to find the stuff I read. Still not in there. Okay. I'm gonna pause.
It's already.
Oh, that's true. Okay. Good. Alright. The two winners spent a grand total of 30 seconds answering the biggest impact in the round. It's try or die to restrain Trump's ability to escalate the poly crisis. Overlapping political, environmental, social upheaval create feedback loops that worsen every global risk. Climate change triggers resource wars, social instability causes civil wars, and the collapse of political regimes increase pressure to start international nuclear conflict. Are in the base to support all of these crises are happening in the same political landscape, which ensures human extinction. The scenario is a one-off potential deployment of escalatory technology, but it writes about the deterrence environment that global actors operate within and says that an unconstrained Trump creates every country's worst nightmare for managing existential risk. We're contesting whether or not the Golden Dome is uniquely escalatory, but you know that a Trump without guardrails is enough to blow up the planet. None of their defense assumes the instability of a Trump 2.0. Even their evidence just says that there are buffers in place, but never says which ones solve for impact, or assumes that Trump is going to exasperate all of them and blow through them, which one necessarily solves Trump, which is the great trigger expert. Now, the defense on this advantage is not true. Intervening actors does not apply because our argument is that the civil service is the intervening actor that prevents Trump from going existential. The dresser arguments is just as short and simple that poly crisis is a buzzword. Or Homer Dixon evidence is far longer and more thorough. It is an empirical analysis and says that it lists every single factor that Trump is going to do to make it worse. The one here was a crossword of all of those words in the Homer Dixon evidence that indicates what Trump is going to do to increase the poly crisis. Even then, their dresser evidence does not assume that the civil service can solve those things. Even if you are cognitively biased for the poly crisis, there's probably a reason for that. And Homer Dixon is the impact. Now, the argument at the top about the district court's checking is wrong. They cannot possibly do so because our argument is that Trump is disobeying them. Other checks like separation of powers or local governments do not solve. Only the civil service does, which is Homer Dixon, because Trump is blowing past all of those things and replacing all of the checks in government with loyalists, which means that it cannot possibly solve now the advantage too. I'm not going for this advantage, but I'll answer the cross-application defense. They just asserted that everything applies to advantage too, but did not contextualize it. So you should do no work for them. X reactions to Trump's volatility guarantees that we don't respond to pandemics in time, don't pay attention to scientific evidence telling us that the climate is worsening, and ignore economic indicators that we're heading towards a recession. They've only ever contested the impact, not the fact that we solve these emergent risks that Trump would exasperate. So there's a 1% risk so 1% risk is enough. There's no status quo world peace kind of plan. Simply preventing one instability technology doesn't create peace because Trump still destabilizes the security environment broadly. Now, House, multiple arguments conceded. One, conservative cap. He's from the George Mason Scalia School of Law, notoriously one of the most conservative in the country. Second, there are many lines where he agrees with the Africans. One area cutting in the conceded poll-centered governance argument. Three, Trump's making all this worse. He worsens groupthink because you can't dissent. He doesn't promote workers to fund agencies and undermine experts. So even if the plan isn't perfect, it can get worse. The next argument was that we survived 6 months for Trump, which is relevant because our evidence is predictive and since he's going to make everything worse. Everything else was just foreign policy defense, which I'm not going for. Listen, the risk of the app might be low after you read the neck hard doc, but the risk of the dissent has to be lower, and this is a classic try or die situation. You know that in the status quo we will not build the Golden Dome, and that is not going to cause conflict because there already exists some amounts of missile defense, which means that there's no reason to risk it now. The CPR bank, the deficit doesn't apply to case all the parts of the one error says that workers only trust processes that they created. They create collective bargaining agreements because that's how negotiation works, so it doesn't apply. Also, the argument that the quick extension of the link cards doesn't apply. It's empirically denied because even if they negotiate over bathrooms, they also negotiate over important things, which checks the poly crisis. The AI counterplan, the critiques of experts are all disproven by the status quo, even if they're biased or overconfident. They are sufficient to check Trump. This is not contextualized enough to the poly crisis, and their card does not answer that the civil service is effective. Also, they only said it turns advantage 1, but not 2. Midterms. The Golden Dome does not cause war. There are 2 parts to the defense, and both the 1NR and 2NR blew through at first. It's infeasible. Even if we did make the Golden Dome, it would take years, and case happens in the interim. The 1NR host evidence agrees. It says that Lockheed is doing its first test in 2028. That means that they would need years to fix the problem, do more tests, get it online, etc. Adversaries will not strike as soon as they see it because they know that the $25 billion into it, and then Lockheed is already scheduled for a test in 2028, which means that they're arguing about Russia and China immediately striking as soon as they think we're developing anything. It's complete bullshit because that would have happened already, because we're doing it in the status quo. The 2AC London evidence says that it is, quote, certainly decades away, and uses the example of Guam's missile events, which proves there are too many challenges of wanting our flattery evidence says the military doesn't even want the Golden Dome, which proves that they won't try to get it working quickly. Second, the Golden Dome fails. It means it doesn't cause war. London says that Iran and Israel approve the missile defense system. Still let a bunch of missiles through. It also gives the war to missile defense systems being saturated by a bunch of missiles at the same time, or decoy missiles. And it says that maneuverable reentry vehicles that missile defense cannot follow ensure it fails. And it explicitly says that Russia and China both have those maneuverable reentry vehicles, which means that they know that they can get past our missile system and do not need to do an arms race to balance it out. The clarity evidence says the military already has tons of missile defense. It lists GBMD, which we have already used against North Korea, which completely zeroes the arms racing argument because it demonstrates that we are never going to do the arms racing. And adversaries already know that we have some amount of defense, but we'll never make it all the way to the Golden Dome. This impact defense is comparatively larger. We have been contesting their polycrisis defense since the 1AC, but they just never answered the warrant of any of the cards that I just read. The one in our read 2 cards about whether or not we could fund the Golden Dome, but not whether or not it actually causes war. Only the evidence is decisive. One in our flattery says you cannot defend the entire United States. It is unrealistic, unaffordable, and unachievable. That's just the negative impact. You know their impact has a risk of being bigger. Now the counterpoint, the dissent does not solve case, even if it's tiny stump of Trump's agenda. The House cannot implement the checks that the civil service can. We need adults in the room to ensure that Trump cannot just blow up the universe, and we need experts to do low-level policy agenda on the day-to-day items to ensure that we can still enforce broad regulations that ensure the plan, not about the plan, was all the one they were needed to say, because the court just doesn't say polycrisis anywhere. I do not need to win any of those defense because the impact is minuscule, and this is a classic try or die situation because they just never answered the warrants of our impactee, but we answered theirs, so it's like relative contestation. Easy.
Could be.
Great debate.
Yeah, it's okay.